this is Karin from the Huntley Library. Thanks for joining me for today's Teen Crafternoon. Today we're going to be making pesto. So we'll get some ingredients together, harvest your basil, and we will get started. Hello! Today we're going to be making an easy homemade basil pesto recipe. So we're going to gather some ingredients together and then we can get started. These are the ingredients that you'll need for our pesto. You're going to need 2 cups of fresh basil leaves. Whether you harvest these from your garden or get them from the store, that I will leave up to you. 2 tablespoons of pine nuts. If you're having trouble finding pine nuts, you could substitute walnuts for that ingredient. You're going to need 2 large cloves of garlic. I actually peeled all of my garlic, so I'm going to call these 2 cloves of garlic right here. And then you're going to need half a cup of olive oil, or if you don't like the flavor of olive oil, you can substitute another oil that is less strongly flavored, like canola oil or grapeseed oil. And you will also need a half cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. So gather those things together. Then you can use your food processor, if you have a food processor, or a blender, if that's what you have, to mix all of these ingredients together. So let's get our ingredients ready to go, and then we can mix them up. Okay, so I've got my basil ready to go. If you have brought this in from your garden or if you got it from the store, either way, you're going to want to rinse it off real quick first, so wash it, and then you can pat it dry a little bit so you don't have too much extra moisture in there. And then we don't need all the stems like all of these leaves are attached to, so we're just going to be using the leaves. And we need about 2 cups of the basil. I'm just going to put the leaves right into my food processor over here as I get them off of these stems. I'm going to compost the stems afterwards too, so that they go back into my garden. I actually did raise a little bit of basil this year. Usually I have a lot more, but for this year, for some reason, only one of my basil varieties really took off, and it has teeny tiny leaves, and it is the cutest, most beautiful little plant. But if I took 2 cups worth of its leaves, I would have no plant left at all. So I'm going to use those to dress up some salads and maybe on pizza and stuff. And my rabbits actually like that basil too. So for this recipe, I bought some basil from the store, and if you do it that way, it's a little bit pricey. You might want to try and find it at a farmer's market or something like that if you don't raise your own. But the nice thing about making pesto out of your basil is that you can freeze the pesto in like ice cube trays or individual containers, and then you can use it later on when you're feeling in the mood for pesto. So keep that in mind. It's a way to use up some of your basil if you're looking for ideas. I was curious about our next ingredient, which is the pine nuts, if they actually, like, what plant or tree do they actually come from? I had a experience at a restaurant where one of the servers told me this fantastically tall tale about where capers come from, and ever since then I've been a little bit leery about trusting information about food ingredients. So pine nuts actually do come from pine trees, and I'll show you what they look like in just a second, but they are they take a really long time to develop, like 15 to 25 years, and they're difficult to harvest because they form inside of the pine cone. So getting them out of there, which is usually something that is harvested by hand, can be an intensive process, so it can take a while. So often they are the most expensive nuts that you can buy, and so if you can't find them in the store, don't worry about it. You could use another variety of nuts in this recipe. But I was able to find them at Walmart in the baking aisle if you're looking for them. So this is what they look like. They kind of look like Rice Krispies. They're about that size. They're a little harder. They also crunch. And I also have walnuts, which is another alternative that you could use. You can actually use a lot of different things for this recipe, and I'll tell you about that in just a second. Okay, so we're on to ingredient number 2, which is our pine nuts. And here's my tablespoon, so I'm going to get 2 tablespoons of those in there. And I have a lot of pine nuts left over for other recipes. I'm not actually sure what else you can do with pine nuts, because the only thing I've ever used them for is making pesto. So maybe I will make some more pesto. Maybe I will try growing some more pesto. In addition to pine nuts, you can use, let's see, walnuts, like we have here, almonds, macadamia nuts, pecans, pistachios, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, or even peanuts. So if you have a different variety of nut that you would like to try instead of pine nuts or walnuts, you can give it a go. Pesto is like a green sauce, so also if you don't have basil and you want to try something else, you could use some other leafy green to make it. So some suggestions are parsley or cilantro, arugula, kale, collard greens, garlic scapes, ramps, or spinach. So those are some other possibilities. You're basically mixing a green, some kind of nut, some kind of aged cheese, and some oil together. So those are our basic categories of ingredients, plus some garlic. So if you don't like garlic, you could leave that out, I suppose, but I really like garlic. So I've got my pine nuts in there, and now we need a couple large cloves of garlic. So I'll put this front and center. And I picked out a couple large cloves of garlic here, so those can go in there as well. And let's get our oil. Okay, we need half a cup of oil, so here's my half cup measure. And I have a little bit of this garlic flavored extra virgin olive oil to use up, so I will put some of that in here. So I got about a quarter cup of that, and then I also have just some regular olive oil. Make up the difference with that. I really like the taste of olive oil, so I'm good with using olive oil, but if you want to, you can use canola oil or grapeseed oil or some other kind of oil. Okay, make sure most of that gets out of there. All right, and then we just need half a cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese, so let me get that. Okay, I don't know how freshly grated this is. I have finely shredded Parmesan cheese. If you have it in a block and you want to grate it, you can do that. You can also, you can actually grate your Parmesan in your food processor if you want to do that before you get all of these other ingredients in here. So I'm going to put in half a cup of my Parmesan cheese. If you don't have Parmesan or you don't like Parmesan, there are all kinds of other cheese possibilities that you can try. I'll get that in there, such as Pecorino Romano, aged Manchego, aged Gouda, aged cheddar, cotija cheese, or Asiago. So those are some other options for you. Okay, now that we've got all of our ingredients in the food processor, we're gonna close it and lock it and make sure nothing's on, and then I'm gonna plug it in and we will pulse this. With the olive oil, that should go fairly quickly. There's enough moisture in there to weight the leaves down and get everything down by that blade. And it's kind of up to you, like what consistency you like here. Do you want it really smooth? Do you want it a little bit chunky? Looks like my cheese is sticking to the side for a little bit, so I'm gonna turn that off for a second and get a little spatula here and just bring that mixture down by the blade some more. It's a very pretty color too when you've got all that green from the basil. Okay, set that off to the side, reattach my lid and lock it, and then pulse some more. If you don't want your cheese to be completely pulverized, you can add that last. You can do the basil, pine nuts, and garlic first, then drizzle in the olive oil, and then do the cheese after that. So here's what we've got now. Give it a little spoon to take a look at that. It smells really good too. Yum. Okay. And what do you do with this? This is a green sauce, so you can put your green sauce on anything that you would put a sauce on. It's really good on pasta, it's good on chicken or other meats, it's like a topping. You can put it on salads, you can put it on vegetables, all kinds of things. And it's good warm or cold. So if you've not tried pesto before, please do. You can try this traditional recipe with the basil and the pine nuts, or you can try one of the other variations where you substitute in different greens, different cheeses, different nuts, and different oils if you want to. Some people also like to add a little bit of citrus to the pesto, so you can add a little bit of lemon juice if you like that, or some other kind of citrus, the zest from a lemon, or other kind of citrus, or some vinegar even, if you like a different kind of bite to it. The garlic definitely does give it some kick though. This recipe makes about 2 cups of pesto. Mine might have a little bit more since I think I had a little extra basil in there. So be careful if you're using, even if you're using a blender, if you're using a food processor, when you take this blade out, and do not cut yourself on it. I just want to have that out of there when I spoon my mixture into a container. And then I can remove the cup there, and I don't think it's going to pour super well, but with a spatula you can put it in a storage container if you're not going to use it right away, or you can just spoon it out on whatever you are saucing. I'm going to make some pasta later on and try it on that. I did try a little spoonful just to see how it tasted a couple minutes ago, and it's delicious, but it's not lunchtime around here yet, so I'll wait a little bit longer and just refrigerate that until I'm ready to use it. The recipe I was kind of referring to suggests that you could try it on avocado toast too, which sounds like a really good idea as a topping there. So, after processing it, it might be about 1 cup actually. Maybe I don't have enough basil. But it's still delicious and it tastes really good. So like I said, if you're not going to use it right away, you can freeze it. And if you want to do it in sort of individual portions, ice cube tray works really well to make those individual portions, because you don't need a whole lot on whatever you are topping. I hope you had fun making pesto with me today, and that you were able to use up all of your extra basil. I have 1 leaf remaining, which I forgot in my sink, so leave that now. For more fun ideas, you can check out our website, www.huntleylibrary.org, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you next time. Thanks. Bye.